Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 86.
Woo.
As always, I'm your host, Jess Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hello.
I keep encountering the number 86 everywhere this week.
That's because it's episode 86.
I got
Everyone
a new,
knows.
I got a new router, and the default subnet on it is 86.
I got a new router, and they sent me 86 of them.
Oh, sweet.
It's very strange that they said it's never happened before.
Yeah, but you never know. Sometimes you need 86 routers.
Our video viewers will immediately notice that there's a huge pile of shit all over the
Yes.
table.
Oh, we should have put the Hyrule Historia up.
We
and
have
the Legends of Localization
The table
book.
is end-to-end Zelda and Amiibos. If you check our Facebook, I posted a picture already of this giant Switch Amiibo party we were having, because we realized that all the Amiibos and all of the Amiibo cards drop things in Breath of the Wild. So, of course, you had to scan my 30 Amiibo cards.
I did.
As well as all your new Amiibos you bought and all my new Amiibo.
Yeah. We have a problem.
And behind...
You know, and I kept telling myself, since Amiibo launched, like, I'm never going to be one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm never going to buy a shit ton of Amiibo. But they're functionally useful in this game. And not in a way that breaks the game, which I appreciate.
Now... Also, behind this whole setup of Switches and Amiibo and Zelda stuff is another pile of... There's more Amiibo
that didn't
back
fit
here.
on camera.
It's
Yarn Yoshi is my favorite Amiibo. No, he's my second favorite Amiibo.
Who's your first? Poochie?
Yarn Poochie. I love Yarn Poochie so much.
So it is...
So I'm going to get home and scan Yarn Poochie and see what he does.
It's straight up ridiculous in here right now. Yeah. Anyway, I do want to start with our giveaway, as we always do.
Yeah.
Every week we give away a game.
Except for that week we forgot.
Except for that, quit talking about that week. Every week we do give away a game to one of our patrons, people that support us financially at patreon.com/retrowarriors, where they also get all kinds of fun goodies like early episodes and video episodes and all kinds of things.
Yeah, pictures of Bowser Jr.'s dick.
Yeah, Saturn, you already drew the name?
I did. I went ahead and drew it in advance so that I wouldn't have to shuffle with moving a hat around.
Well, now
and sound
I'm upset
because
like the act of you take. Can you pretend you're taking it out of a hat? Just an imaginary hat.
Yeah.
This is.
I haven't looked at it yet, though, so there was still suspense.
This is for a copy of Guacamelee, a game we talked about not last episode, but the episode before, and a game we both very, very much enjoy.
Oh, it's so good.
And we should have gave away on that episode. I don't know why we didn't. That's
it's going to be a copy of Guacamelee Super Turbo Champion Edition.
Super Turbo Mega Championship Edition.
Which is the better version. It has the more shit.
The bestest version.
The bestest
is the word
version
you were looking for.
And it's going to be for the PC version.
Wonderful. Yeah, as always, everything we give away is from...
I do have some 3DS and PS4 codes, so maybe we'll use those at some point.
Yeah, well, they're harder because we have a lot of non-US listeners. Anyway.
So, it's going to go to Robbie. Robbie Cervantes.
Robbie actually, because he's a personal friend, explicitly told me that if he wins, he wants to know that he won.
Yeah.
And then he does not want us to give it to him.
Okay, so do I need to draw again?
Yes, you still have to draw a name out of the hat after all this cajiggering about the hat.
So we're going to draw again.
So Robbie, you would have won it.
You are technically victor. But you get nothing.
He preemptively passed because he's being kind, because even though he's not directly involved with the show, he is, again, a close personal friend. Yeah. So he also,
Robbie Cervantes is also the character I use in Soul Calibur.
Yes, of course. That's how we know him.
That's how he won, was he kicked the shit out of Sophisha.
So this week...
Ian Oberschlake,
you are going to receive a copy of Guacamelee. So please do check your Patreon messages. Which
one
is
of
how
us might have pronounced that right.
Possibly. Yeah. That's why we alternating. So you will be receiving that through Patreon direct message. So please do absolutely check that. Yeah. And yes, anyway, Saturn.
Yes.
News. Wonder Boy.
Oh, and it's coming out soon.
Curse.
Yes. The remake of the Dragon's Trap. Dragon's Curse was the name of it on Turbo. Dragon's Trap was the Sega name.
How have I already confused it?
Yes.
Immediately.
It's the same game, just different publisher.
So it is coming out on April 18th, was announced today. I got a PR email from .emu.
So excited about that.
Hopefully we will be able to cover it on the show. And
we'll cover it on the show one way or another.
Right, yeah, but anyway, that's coming out. So that's a big thing. Also coming to Switch. A lot of Switch stuff, which people may have noticed. The Switch came out.
Yeah, it feels like it's been weeks, but
it's not even been a week.
It's been less than a week.
Yeah, it's been,
more than a week for the people listening.
Right.
If they're not patrons.
Yeah. But it's Switch came out and yeah, other than the Switch, the only news I had was that because I got the PR email today.
Yeah, I was on my way out here and I was like, man, it's been so long since I've been out there.
Yeah.
And I realized it's been less than a week since I've been out here because I went with you to go get your Switch.
Yeah.
And it's just been it's been
it's been insane.
Yes.
It has been an insane emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I do want to say up front, we are going to be talking. You probably read the episode titles because you can read. But this is going to be our Breath of the Wild episode, and we are qualifying. We are giving reasons why we're talking about Breath of the Wild because I know we are a retro show.
I love how you have reached so hard to find the reason for it.
But we are going to be talking about Breath of the Wild in a retro context. And again, this show is just as much about retro remakes and revivals and retro-inspired design and indie games as it is about those old retro games.
Now, before we do go into it, though, I want to give an honorary mention to the game we thought we were going to cover this week.
Which is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to cover Super Bomberman R.
Yeah.
And then we played Super Bomberman R.
Yeah. And it's so mediocre.
It is. Oh, until you play online, and then,
it's just broken.
It's just hot garbage.
Yeah.
It is hot, broken garbage.
I like to think of Super Bomberman R as Konami's olive branch to gamers. Because they were like, I know that
their $50 olive branch that doesn't work online.
Well, what it was is they were like, we fucked up. We pissed a lot of people off. We injured our ties with the gaming community. So we want to extend this olive branch. It's the ugliest olive branch we could find on the olive plant. And it's split and it's
one that
moldy.
already fell off the tree a month ago.
And there's a bunch of bugs on it. But here you go.
Yeah.
That I feel
there's
like
a
that
dog turd stuck on the end of it. Super Bomberman R offline is not a bad game. The local multiplayer works.
It's not a good game. Here's the thing. It did keep Super Bomberman's tradition of being worse than the previous Super Bomberman games.
There you go.
Yeah. So there you go. Because 1 and 2 are still the best Super Bomberman games.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 were... I felt like each one was weaker than the last. And now the 6th Super Bomberman game, which is R, is...
you can buy it.
It's not terrible, but I believe that even offline, I feel like the controls are imprecise.
Yeah.
I feel like the cameras are bad.
Have you tried the fixed camera mode?
No, I haven't even noticed that was an option.
Check the options. There is a fixed camera mode that might alleviate some, because I don't have an issue with the camera, but it gets in the way a little bit.
My problem is that it'll constantly pan while I'm moving.
Right.
And also, it's much harder in this Bomberman than in previous ones to be able to know if you're right at the intersection of the grid,
which is kind of an important deal with Bomberman.
That is an important facet.
But I did just want to mention that up front. I know you probably looked at it and you're like, that's not a retro game. So before you yell and send us an email, then just hold on, just wait, wait.
I would like to say that if you are interested in a Bomberman experience on your new Nintendo console, Bomberman 94 is on Wii U now.
And that's kind of a switch.
It is a newer Nintendo console, and it is a thing you can play.
Anyway, our weeks, I do have some non-Switch stuff. So before we dig into the Switch itself, I wanted to talk about my week.
I do too. So.
Do you really? Okay. I just want to throw the disclaimer up front about the topic, and then my week. I have it. Where is it? Here it is. This is not a video game.
That is not.
This is.
Is it?
But I do play retro tabletop games.
I'm gonna just tune out.
So you just go to sleep for a little bit, and I'll wake you up whenever it's. I did receive this. This is Osric, old school reference and index compilation, and it is as boring and dry as it sounds.
It does sound pretty fucking boring.
And I just absolutely love it.
I'll give it credit for the title. Looks like an 80s fantasy book.
Yeah. Now this is what Osric is it is a open, I don't want to say open source, but open rights, I guess is the phrase. It's a non-copywritten open source version of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition.
Okay. It is a non non-copyright infringing version of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is one that so basically
a public domain equivalent.
Right. I play AD&D. And I know it's shocking. It's just blew you away.
Yeah.
I worship Satan and I play Dungeons and Dragons. is how it goes. But the AD&D manuals were written by Gary Gygax himself, which means they've got wonderful prose and insight into the games written into them. But they're organizationally a huge mess.
Right.
This thing just fixes the organization, puts it all in one book. So,
nice.
Again, it's gaming related and it's retro gaming related, but it's not a video game. And I was excited about it. Yeah. One day, one listener is going to write in and be like, I love when you talk about tabletop games, and you're just going to be fucked. Yeah. Because it's going to be 20 minutes every week.
We're going to have to get a replacement Saturn for when you start talking about that. So that
I like that scene in Wayne's World where we'll be like, can we just get someone else?
Yeah.
I know it's a small part, but can we get a better actor? Anyway, what other than that, just Switch stuff for me is basically it.
I downloaded Newtopia on my Wii U.
Oh yeah, how is that?
It's Newtopia.
Is it got they fixed the TurboGrafx simulation on Wii U, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not shitty and garbage like it was on the Wii.
It looks great on the Wii U.
Okay,
because that's the 7th Wii U PC Engine game that I've gotten.
Wow.
Because R-Type, Gradius.
I can't believe they're up to that many.
Yeah, this was 7. So
now I hope someone has told Konami the Wii U is dead. So when it doesn't sell good, that doesn't mean
this is a bad sign. Why didn't you buy them?
That doesn't mean just stop making games.
No,
I could just see a CEO like, well, Newtopia didn't sell shit. We released it the week that Breath of the Wild came out. Everyone fucking bought that.
Right. Also, my roommate went to an arcade in Minneapolis this week at the Mall of America that is owned by Namco, and they had so much Pac-Man shit.
Oh my god, you have Pac-Man shit in your hand.
Yeah, he brought me this keychain.
Oh, it's on your keychain. I was like, were you just holding that this whole time?
Yeah, I've just been hanging on to it.
You just like quarter behind the ear that.
Yeah. But no, it's he brought me this Pac-Man keychain. They're even the plastic bags that they put the product in when you buy it comes in a giant Pac-Man bag.
Wow.
Just Pac-Man everywhere because Namco owns the arcade.
Yeah.
And so he brought me some merchandise from that, and that was really nice. So if you happen to be at the Mall of America and you happen to be a Pac-Man fan,
then waka waka.
Go check out that fucking arcade. It's got arcade shit in it.
Hold on. I'm going to grab this cat, and I know it's a little unprofessional to do on the air.
Uh-huh.
But there is no easy way to do that. Anyway.
No, Normal was... She was begging for affection.
She's not usually up here when we do the show anymore, but it's a new thing.
She used to be a regular contributor to the show.
She was always on the show. She was usually in your lap.
Yeah, she was either in my lap or stabbing you in the legs.
Yeah,
that's what I recall.
Basically. Anyway, any other non-Switch talk?
No.
I want to talk about the Switch launch.
That happened this week.
So, first, I want to talk about me getting mine because we had a group chat going, and
did we discuss it on the mini-sode?
Did we?
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't believe so. If we did, then here it is again.
Yay!
No, it's gonna be a brief version because mine didn't ship, and it was 10 o'clock at night, Thursday night, day before, and mine hadn't shipped.
Right.
And I was like, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
If it hasn't shipped by now, it's not going to make it. Yeah, and especially living out in the boonies like me. Like, you live in the city, maybe it'll get there.
Yeah, mine shipped at 9 p.m. and got to me at 6 p.m. launch day.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Mine hadn't shipped, so we showed up at Walmart in Decatur, Texas, and got in line.
Which, for those who don't know, is the biggest city in Texas. It's
you may have heard of it.
That's where the elite to-dos like to gather.
There was a shocking 15 people in that Walmart, including employees, and we were 2 of them.
No, there was like 25 people in that Walmart, including employees, because 12 of them ended up in the Switch line before they came by and told us there were 5.
I did want to mention specifically this, and I don't know if I told you this in the car on the way home, but I did get one. I was 5th in line out of 5 systems.
I was 6th in line, but not looking to buy one.
Right. You were there for accessories, which you got.
Yeah, I was there for moral support and for accessories and to not talk myself into buying a second Switch that night.
Right, which luckily you didn't have to.
Yeah, because
they didn't have
convenient.
Anyway, so we're standing in line, and of course, this is Walmart in the middle of nowhere, so the only people that work there are old women that work there overnight.
Right.
You know, and she's like, and so Corey, friend of the show, Corey, he was on the co-host of our Metal Gear episode with us, is texting me saying, watch, they're going to bring out Wii U's because they don't know the difference. And I'm like, Corey, stop. It's not funny. Yeah. Stop it. I'm going to get my Switch. Quit. No, they're going to bring out Wii U's, man. You just watch.
As if a Walmart has seen a Wii U in 4 months.
That's what I told him. He's like, no, they got a new shipment of them. They're like, look, it's the new Nintendo. And he's texting me this, and I wasn't saying anything to you because you're talking to other people in line. And he's going on, and he's getting me kind of worried. I'm like, what if they don't know what's going on? Because it was
they bring a bunch of PS4 Pros to the front.
And then the lady comes out, and she goes, are y'all here for that Nintendo or the Wii?
Yeah, that was so great.
And I was like, Corey, it's happening. They're going to sell me a Wii. They don't know. Walmart and Decatur, you can suck it. You're the worst Walmart, so and not just because of that.
So, were you there for the Nintendo or the Wii?
I didn't even know how to answer that.
Yeah, right. I really wanted to say Nintendo makes the Wii.
Yeah, well, someone said that, and she was like, I don't know about these video games. Right. And we're like,
we can tell.
Then someone just goes, the Nintendo. And she's like, all right. And I kind of want to know what would have happened if we said Wii.
Yeah.
Would she have been like, sorry, it ain't 2006 anymore.
It would have been great if she pulled out a bunch of old launch Wii units. Like, we've been holding on to these.
That Walmart still has special edition Marvel vs. Capcom 3 launch version for 360.
Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for Xbox One came out today.
It's on sale there for $70.
Yeah, the Xbox One version is $25.
It's a weird trapped in time Walmart.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell me a Wii.
The further from society you get, the more trapped in time the Walmarts are.
It's very bizarre.
I saw a picture online today of a Walmart in the middle of Florida somewhere that has 3 special edition Breath of the Wild hanging out.
What the hell?
That nobody has bought them.
What?
They're just locked up in their case.
I have heard rumor of people walking into stores and just buying Switches.
Yeah, and there are apparently still a handful out there for that.
Man.
So,
I did also
not around here.
I did also want to mention we've had a couple people asking us, how are your Switches? Do you have any defects? And there's tons of videos and articles and this and that about Switches just like bursting into flames left and right, and docs just cutting Switches in half. And
mine turned into a demon, murdered me, ritualistically brought me back to life, and then turned back into a Switch.
So really, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, it was inconvenient.
I did want to say, of the 7 Switches, 8 of the 8 Switches, between me and either personal friends or people who have written in, and I've talked about their Switch with them.
Yeah.
Of those 8 that I've had, not personal contact, but immediate ties to, only 1 has had an issue.
We've had a group chat going with 5 of us that own Switches. Plus your brother owns a Switch.
Oh, pardon me, 9 Switches.
Jesus.
So of the 9 Switches, 1 had an issue, and the issue was that the fan ran nonstop, which I'm guessing is a controller that didn't get plugged in right or something in the factory. So that's the only issue out of 9 now.
I had 1 lockup.
You did have 1 lockup.
When I was trying to, I'd had it docked, and I'd left it on the controller screen, the status screen.
Yeah.
And I had gone to get food, and when I came back, I took it off the dock and accidentally hit A and B at the same time.
Confused it.
Apparently that screen got confused and just stuck there until I hard powered it.
Was it A or is it B?
Yeah. And that was on launch day too.
Yeah.
But since then it's been fine.
Yeah.
I got blue Joy-Con.
You did get gorgeous blue Joy-Cons. God,
love them.
I hadn't seen the neon in person. I wouldn't want the mismatched neon because I'm too but God, that is a nice set of Joy-Con.
I am looking into getting the red Joy-Con set now. Best Buy has them in stock on their website for regular price. Regular price being $80
for 2 controllers. Saturn, it's 2 $40.
They're $50 individually.
Are the straps blue?
No, they came with regular black straps.
What?
If you want the blue straps, they're $8 a piece from Nintendo.
Thanks, Nintendo.
A piece. They don't even come in a pair.
I'm already like out my tax return because of this thing.
Seriously.
Anyway, I do want to get into Breath of the Wild. For anybody that checks our Patreon or reads the website or anything, or really that listened to the show previously, I wasn't excited for Breath of the Wild.
Right.
And now I'm so excited that we have a table full of Breath of the Wild shit.
Yeah.
I have a guide that I don't need coming in the mail. And I've scrapped this episode's topic to basically just gush about Breath of the Wild for the remainder of this show. This coming from me, who is not a huge Zelda fan and didn't even play the game for the first day I owned a Switch because I didn't think I was gonna like it.
So bottom line, 6 out of 10. Nah.
Maybe a 6.5. This game thus far,
yeah.
And I'm gonna try to do it. We're gonna try to do it relatively spoiler free.
Yeah.
Like major story details, I don't want to be dropping because one, I think I'm ahead of you in the story.
Yes.
And two, it's still a very new game and people are very sensitive to spoilers.
I don't want to drop any story spoilers. I also want to minimize interface spoilers. I don't want to pull an Andrew, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, because Andrew has said some things in our group chat that, well, I don't care, and you probably don't care that much. Okay,
I care a lot. I'm like, stop it. Stop doing that.
The things that he has said are fairly minor,
yeah,
but still just enough to tell you things that you might not have wanted to know before you encounter them.
But we are going to talk about the general design of the game, and then maybe some nitty-gritty stuff, and maybe some specifics from the Great Plateau, the beginning area, the first hour and a half of the game.
Yeah,
maybe.
The tutorial.
Right, basically the tutorial. But all that to say that I want to talk about specifically the design of Breath of the Wild, and I have no notes. This is all off the cuff, so hopefully I don't just sound like a bumbling idiot.
We will.
But I want to start in the Wayback Machine with the NES Zelda games, Zelda 1 and 2.
And that's actually a bone I have to pick with the review community, the gaming journalism community. I feel like they are misreading this.
And I'm guessing what you're talking about is everyone saying, oh, this is designed just like the NES ones.
Yes.
It doesn't hold your hand and there's no tutorial. No.
Yeah.
There are 2 tutorials.
Okay.
It does too hold your hand.
There is less hand holding now than there was on the NES. I'm going to say that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because when I got my copy of Zelda in 1987, I open up the gold box and there's a map of the world.
That's true.
With direct instructions on how to get to the first 4 dungeons and full detailed maps of the first 2 dungeons.
I guess that's
telling
true.
You exactly how to get the boomerang and the bow and what to do with it and how to kill bosses. There was a ton of hand holding.
Because I've been having the opposite reaction.
When people talk about how the first Zelda was completely hands off and just let you roam the world, they're playing it from the perspective of someone playing it today.
Well,
someone who didn't have all those feelings.
They're also playing from the perspective of like someone like me. I didn't have any of that
Exactly,
shit.
That's what I'm saying.
I just had a bare card. It was here's your card, go.
If you bought it used or if you got it later and or if you got it on the virtual console, you don't get all that stuff.
Right.
And that stuff guided us through the first several hours of the game to the point to where we were comfortable in the world.
Right.
And I think Breath of the Wild starts off in that direction. Like the Great Plateau does an excellent job of making you comfortable.
Right.
And telling you just enough. Like never so much that you feel like it's fucking Naviing you into where to go.
Or feeing you.
Yeah. But it still gives you some guidance.
Right.
Like the very, very, very beginning. And again, I don't think this is considered a spoiler. But you talk to the...
If you own the game and you're not 5 minutes into the game, then stop, play it for 5 minutes, and keep listening.
Go play your first hour, then come back. But no, you talk to the old man, and he tells you to go to the 3 additional shrines.
Right.
Does not tell you where they are.
Well, and then
he just tells you, look around.
And then this is what I do love about it, and I want to get into why I had a completely opposite opinion coming into this episode than you, and was frustrated with a lot of the talk about it. But what's interesting to me is if you keep bugging him, he'll eventually be like, dude, just fucking figure it out, man. I don't know.
Yeah, he tells you just look around.
And you're like, dude, are you... Help me, help. Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm not. You need to figure this shit out.
But he does tell you how to use the scope and how to place pins.
Right.
And if you actually do look around, you'll see glowy bits.
Yeah.
And you're like, I should go to the glowy
bits.
Now,
I'll say this. I went to the wrong glowy bits for a long time.
Oh, yeah?
Because I saw one like off in the distance that I couldn't get to. And I was trying to get to it. And so the tutorial was rough for me.
Oh, see, I ended up real quickly getting through all the first area. The only thing that really hit me in that first area was I couldn't figure out at first how to survive the cold. So I kept trying to get to that one shrine that was in the mountain and freezing to death. Yeah. I died up there like 12 times. Woof. And finally just like darted around this one direction to get around things, just started hammering baked apples into my mouth to stay alive, and got to it and survived. and finished it and then left. And then like as soon as I finished that area, I find a pepper.
Yeah.
Like immediately.
You know, the bright red pepper plants on the white landscape that are immediately
that
inside
I did not even observe before. And I find a pepper. And then I find he's like, hey, if you do this, then I'll give you the warm coat, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I probably should have done all that first.
Yeah.
But other than that, the rest of the Great Plateau, I just rushed through.
And this is what I do enjoy about the game, and it's that you still did it.
Yeah.
You did it in a way that maybe you
possibly
weren't
unorthodox
intended to, but the game is very accepting of exactly unorthodox solutions to its problems.
I feel like I've constantly done things not the way it wanted throughout the game thus far.
I do it every once in a while. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of doing something really dumb and I'll catch on and be like, oh, you know, all right.
One of the shrines that I did earlier, and I'm not going to reveal any details on it, but one of the shrines, I am absolutely certain that I came to a solution to the puzzle that was not intended.
There's one that both Andrew and I solved in a way that was not intended, and I am going to describe it. It's a Super Monkey Ball style marble puzzle.
Yeah.
So is that the one you're talking about?
No, not that one, but I also did that one weird. I just kept flipping the marble over the walls into other sections.
What I did is I would intentionally... So it's a marble
First
puzzle.
Of all, I hate the motion controls. I hate them.
Turn them off.
I tried, but those kinds of puzzles still use them.
You still do. So you have to use motion controls on your controller and treat it like like you're holding a marble maze.
Yeah.
So I would intentionally flip it off and then turn the whole maze so it'd fall closer to the end.
Right.
Andrew
flipped it over.
Just flip the whole thing upside down.
And use the flat surface.
He's like, the bottom's flat. Just flip it the fuck over. And I was like, you magnificent bastard.
I tried that and could not aim it for shit upside down. Like that was one of the options that I tried when I was playing with that puzzle. Couldn't aim.
So anyway, more on task. My complaint was the opposite of yours. Is I was saying, no, this has much more hand holding the original Zelda. Yeah. But that's probably because I'm coming from the perspective of someone, I didn't take it out of the box. It was like, here's the game, here's the guy with a sword, go.
Yeah.
And for me, what the original Zelda was a game that I just played for hours and hours and hours, not beating it ever. Or even completing most of it, just wandering around doing shit.
Now, granted, after those first 3-4 dungeons in Zelda 1, the rest of the map is not filled in. The map that comes with the game. And the dungeon maps, you get nothing. Yeah. So, and the second quest is just a complete fucking mystery.
Right.
So there was still that exploration, but for me, for people who bought the game new back then, there was a warm up to it. There was a ramp up before you got to that open exploration, go find the world.
Yeah.
And for me playing Breath of the Wild, like the Great Plateau area at the beginning, no problem with it. And then it gives you some direction. It's like, if you go this way, you'll get to this. And then when you get there, someone else tells you, oh, if you go this way, you'll get to this.
Right.
And then you get there, and then it just stops.
Yeah, it's just like, go.
Yeah, it's just like, well, you figured it out. And just let you roam.
Yeah, well, it basically, and what I do like is right outside the starting area, it's like, here's your main quest, defeat Ganon. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
you're just jumping right to that, aren't you? There's no...
As somebody who's played a handful of open world games, not too many, but I'm used to the incremental story quests. Like this quest leads to this quest, leads to this quest, and then when you finally get the one that's like destroy final boss, that means you're in the end game.
Yeah, you're there.
That's the first quest you get.
So NES Zelda, and let's talk Zelda 2. Zelda 2, I don't believe, came with all of that stuff.
No. Zelda 2 gave you enough instruction to get to the Desert Palace, which is your first palace, and to tell you that you needed to go through Death Mountain to get the hammer. That's about as much as came with the game.
So in that way, Zelda 2 had really, guides aside, neither one of them gives you much information at all.
Yeah.
But included materials, Zelda 2 is probably the most freeform and least hand-holding of the two.
Keep in mind, and I don't want to sound cynical here, but when Zelda 1 came out, they weren't trying to sell Nintendo power.
That's what I was going to get to. Is Zelda 2, they were like, well, it doesn't come with this shit because it didn't get the power.
Right.
So if you don't got the power, then it's whatever, you know.
But Zelda 1, it was pretty blatant. It showed you the exact path to get to the first 4 dungeons, and it had full detailed maps of the first 2 dungeons.
Really?
Yeah. Full illustrated maps of exactly where to go in these dungeons, where the items are, what to do in them, how to get to the boss, how to kill the boss. That all came with the game.
I never realized that.
And then you got starter maps.
Well, no, I did realize. I don't know why I forgot about that because I remember that map.
Yeah.
Like I didn't own it, but I remember like seeing it later and being like, oh, that came with the game. I don't have that.
And it's like 2/3 of the map is filled in for you.
Yeah.
The top left and top right corners are completely blank.
Although if you have an NES Classic and you bought the book that comes with that, it doesn't come with the map.
No.
They omitted it.
What's more, the digital manual that the game comes with leaves out that part too.
Is the original NES release of Legend of Zelda the only way to get that map?
So far as I'm aware.
I don't...
Because it was not included, even scanned in anything else that I've seen.
Was it in the NES Atlas?
There was a map, but it was a more complete map in the NES game Atlas.
Okay. Anyway, I want to talk about because I want to chart it. I want to chart the design behind Zelda. So coming from this kind of open world with a little bit of included materials or Nintendo Power materials to get you going, we jump straight into Link to the Past.
Right. And Link to the Past also came with a map, but its map was more of a caricature of the world map.
Right.
It was an illustration of the map without like where each room starts and stops, and there was no extreme detail.
And Link to the Past is also when design-wise, it went from like, okay, go, to, okay, well, here's your story introduction.
Right.
Here's your here's your thesis to the game. This is what you want to do. This is what's going on. This is how you get your stuff. We're going to walk you through it. Okay, here's a little tutorial area while you escape this dungeon. You're free. But even then, a lot of the game is really intricate and specific trading of items and talking to specific people in specific orders.
Now, granted, you can go out of order in Link to the Past.
Right.
You can go pretty... After you do the first 3 dungeons and get your pendants...
And then you're doing the medallions.
Yeah, in the Dark World, you can pretty much go where you want.
Right.
Like it doesn't encourage you to do that.
No.
But you can. And if you find the way to get to those other places, it can make the game much easier. Like I always do Dungeon 4 first in the Dark World. I go get the hammer from the first dungeon, then I go straight to Dungeon 4, get the Titan's Mitt. Rest of the Dark World is easier.
So it still had some of that openness in it, you know, most definitely.
No, it gave you a path, and it wanted you to follow that path.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, I would say that's Super Nintendo's whenever the idea of sequence breaking came out, and it is sequence breaking because it is intended this way, you're doing it a different way, you can, it works within the confines of the game, and maybe even the designers knew it, but you weren't supposed to. It wasn't all right. They were like, oh, you did it wrong, so whatever.
Right. Link's Awakening was way stricter about keeping you on that path.
And I'm sure it was intentional for Link's Awakening because it was a mobile entry.
Yeah.
But that idea of design in Link to the Past, where it's like, okay, well, it's a lot more specific and a lot more rigid. You can kind of sequence break it a little bit, but you really want to follow this specific order of things. Very much transitions into Ocarina. Yeah. Because Ocarina is basically the same thing, but in 3D.
Yeah, whereas people have since learned how to sequence break Ocarina.
It's not a thing that happened.
The game doesn't encourage you to do it. In any way. In fact, it actively tries to discourage you.
The game doesn't expect you to do it either. You know, they don't expect you to accomplish said task.
Yeah, whereas in Link to the Past, there is some sequence breaking that can break the story. It requires glitching the game. But you can also do sequence breaking in Link to the Past that doesn't glitch the game. That's perfectly accepted within the game's programming. In Ocarina, that's not as much the case.
Yeah.
Any sequence breaking that happens there pretty much requires you to glitch the game out or do something that breaks it in some way.
Yeah. And so Link to the Past and Ocarina, I kind of lump together design-wise. They're very much...
One definitely led to the other.
Right. Yeah. But there's still that same kind of school of design.
Right.
And then you get Majora's Mask, which is just masturbatory in the amount of specific things you do in specific orders, specifically this way, specifically every day.
At this specific time of day, on this specific day.
It almost becomes, at that point, it's a feature of Zelda games. It's become a part of Zelda. You have to do these specific tasks in specific orders.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as you get a Master Sword and you get a Hylian Shield and you get a Boomerang, and you get all this other stuff, it's, well, every Zelda game, all right, well, there's going to be, in the middle of the game, there's going to be this really ridiculous trade sequence, and then you're going to have to do these things in a specific order. And that's when I start falling out with the games.
Yeah. Honestly, the 3D Zelda games I enjoy far less than the classic Zelda games.
Yeah.
I've pushed myself through most of them. Like Ocarina, I don't hate. You know, I still enjoy Ocarina. Yeah. I enjoyed Twilight Princess. I enjoyed Skyward Sword. I loved Wind Waker the first time I played it. I can't replay it.
Yeah. Now, and this isn't to say that Majora's Mask is a bad game.
No.
But this is the apex of that do these things in this specific order school of design that was frustrating for me because it's basically a giant memorization game.
Right.
And I understand that people love the game for its setting and its dark tone, and that's all very valid.
I love the tone of it. I wish the game was better.
Yeah, but and you can see there's this break where Nintendo realizes, like, okay, that didn't work.
Right.
People want more openness.
Yeah.
They loved Terminal Field in Ocarina of Time. They want
Hyrule
more of
Field.
that. Pardon me, Hyrule Field.
Yeah.
They want more of that. They want more openness.
Yeah.
Here's Wind Waker. Go find stuff.
Jesus.
And they went full on in the opposite direction.
You never go full retard.
And it became this game that is like, all right, there's all these pieces. Go find them. We don't know where they are.
Right.
And it was not only so directionless, but everything in the game was, you're just looking at blue ocean.
Right.
It all looks the same.
That's the part that kills me going back to try to play it now. And,
yeah.
And I've been told by many people the Wii U version is supposedly more streamlined.
Yeah.
But I don't feel it when I play the game. It still feels...
I mean, it is more streamlined.
Right.
It was just such a slog.
Right.
That you get...
Like, I want to love Wind Waker. I love the art style. I love the sound. I love the setting and the characters.
Right.
But going back to replay it, every time I try to replay it, it's just so slow.
And it also is, to me, the height of Collectathon Zelda.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff to collect. You have to collect map pieces and all these Triforce pieces, and it's just nonstop.
I'll be honest, when I first started Breath of the Wild and I got my first Spirit Orb and it showed me the little counter for it, my first thought was, are you fucking kidding me?
More collecting shit. Yeah, but then they don't go that way at all.
Yeah.
They're like, that's basically the only thing you collect.
Yeah, there's two collect things. There's that and the Korok seeds.
Yeah.
That's it.
And they're both functional as well.
Right.
They're not just a thing that you get.
Yeah,
Here's your MacGuffin.
Yeah. I haven't found one piece of heart.
Yeah.
Because the Spirit Orbs kind of fill that role.
Yeah, how bullshit is the heart pieces? Here's a piece of one heart.
Yeah.
Can you just give me a heart,
I hate
please?
that fucking took off after
I swear to God.
Link to the Past, because the first game just gives you heart containers.
Yeah.
If you find an old man with a heart container, you get a heart container. When Link to the Past came around, it was like, yeah, here's a piece of a heart.
Well, and then Link to the Past is the beginning of this Collectathon Zelda idea, which is pieces of hearts. You've got to collect your 3 bottles. You got to collect all the spells. And because Zelda is...
There's no bottles in this one either.
No, there's not.
I keep
just jam a fairy in your pocket.
Yeah,
Here you go.
I keep like realizing to myself, like, this hasn't happened yet, and I'm playing Zelda.
Right.
As I play.
This is also, at the all the Zelda games up to this point and continuing after this point, which we'll get into, are so fascinated and stuck on unique items.
Yeah.
Here's your hookshot, here's your bow, here's your boomerang, here's your this, here's your that.
Yeah.
They're very much like, oh, well, when do I get the blank in this one? And when, and it's
got to the point where in Twilight Princess and in Skyward Sword, you would see something and you'd be like, that's obviously a thing I'll be able to interact with when I get my hookshot.
Yeah. And it's I get that it's like watching TV. Yeah. It's like everyone wants to see the same story told over and over and over again. And it's enjoyable because it's familiar. Right. And that familiarity was very prevalent in Zelda games, even though they started getting weird after Ocarina. They're like, what do we do? Here's Majora. Here's Wind Waker. We don't know. Here's some weird shit. And even though that was happening, it was still, you still want to see these familiar things. Right. And they seem to, Nintendo, their design seemed to confuse familiar things and familiar stories. Right. And it was like, well, yeah, you're in the ocean doing whatever and you're a cartoon now, but you got a hook shot. Look, it's Zelda. And I'm like, that doesn't make it Zelda. Right. That just means you put a hook shot in it. Yeah. Which I'm thinking of, is a hook shot even in Wind Waker? Is that a...
Yeah, I'm pretty...
Isn't it?
Fuck. I'm gonna have to go back.
Find a fucking boomerang. I don't know. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it must have been. Anyway,
was it?
Yeah. Also, I really, really want people to stop hypothesizing about where Breath of the Wild falls into the story.
Oh well, it's clear where it falls into the story.
I don't give a fuck about the story.
Well, that's good because Nintendo doesn't either.
I
clearly.
know. And the thing is, I am of the mindset that they stopped caring about the story when Ocarina came out.
Yeah.
And there were some interviews from that time where they admitted, we don't think about the story when we're making it. We just make a fun game and then we cram a story on it.
Well, they treat it like Mario. It's not like, well, okay, well, where is Mario 2 in the narrative?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, it's whatever.
Yeah, and they just make a fun game and they slap a story on it. And when the Hyrule Historia came out and everybody flipped out about, oh, we finally know what the timeline is. Like, no, I don't believe this any more than I believed any of the fan theories. This is just as equally bullshit.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, well, Ocarina of Time is clearly where the real story started. Like, no, that's where the story fell apart.
Well, then there's the split storyline.
Yeah, fuck them.
And
fuck all of that. Every time somebody's like, well, Ocarina is where the real story started. No, that was where the story fell apart. Yeah. The story was coherent and made sense until Ocarina came out. And since then, it's just been a train wreck, story-wise. Games are fine.
So, after Wind Waker, we get Twilight Princess, which very much feels like, okay, you just want familiar Zelda.
You just wanted Ocarina. Sorry.
Here's familiar Zelda. Yeah. Look, it's got a hook shot. It's got a bow. You go to the dungeons and you fight the boss. There's a forest
temple and a water temple.
And it was good. Yeah. It was a really good Zelda game. But that was it. It was just a really good Zelda game.
Right.
It didn't do anything
innovate
new or
in any important way. No, it added motion controls.
Oh yeah, pardon me, I forgot. But it still had the same collectathon stuff, toned down a little bit from Wind Waker, but it was the same beats every single time.
It was more narrative driven than a lot of the games before.
Absolutely, it had a grating, terrible, ridiculously long and stupid tutorial.
Yes.
Where you start in a town, okay, first catch this ram, and then you got to go over here and catch my cat, and then if you come get my baby out of the sewer, then and you're like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be killing Ganon.
Could you please become a chicken? Yeah. Like the whole intro to Twilight.
That's also when they're trying to.
I would say through the first Twilight realm of Twilight Princess is really painful.
It's gnarly. And they're like, okay, well, you wanted cinematic Zelda. This is more cinematic. And it's like making me watch people talk, making me flip through dialogue boxes is not cinematic.
Yeah.
It's boring. You know? And I at this point,
and Skyward came out.
Yeah. At this point, Skyward comes out.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, well, we're going to do new things, but we want to be super sure you know how they work. So here's a tutorial that lasts for the entire game. Oh my god. Now, up to this point, I wouldn't say that any of the games...
There was a way to avoid the tutorial, and that was to never turn off your system. If you left the game running for 7 weeks straight while you played,
you'd be fine.
Then there was practically no tutorial.
I do want to say that up to this point, all the Zelda games we've talked about, I don't think any of them are bad games. I enjoy each of them in their own right, some more or less than others, but I think they're all at their core good games. Yeah. And I think that even though a lot of them had missteps...
Yeah, even then, I wouldn't rank any of them below an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, even though they had missteps and they had issues... clear, glaring, obvious issues.
Yeah,
they're all still good games, and then Skyward Sword happened, and it's hot garbage.
I think the Skyward Sword was still a quality game, and the critical community seems to agree.
Critical community can suck it because it's wrong.
It averages among the higher rated Zelda games too. I would say that it's still a solid quality game. It definitely has some missteps though. It has a much smaller world than the last several before it, which I think it benefits from because you become more familiar with the areas that you go to.
What I really loved was motion controlling a fucking bird.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
Yeah, it was garbage.
I also enjoyed that every time I turned my Wii on, it told me what a green rupee is worth.
Well, see, I would play for long sessions. My sessions were 6 to 10 hours.
We've talked about it before. Yeah. I would sit down and play for 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
That game would be unbearable.
It is, I promise you.
Because... yeah, every time that you turn it on, you're like, yeah, I get it. I just killed a choo-choo again.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this.
Not only that, but you have to you go around collecting items and stuff.
Yeah, there's so many collectibles in that game.
Every fucking collectible you pick up, it tells you what it does.
It's like, this is a red heart. It restores 1 point of your health.
It was rough.
Yeah.
So to me personally, Skyward Sword is when it became incredibly abundantly clear that Nintendo just had no fucking idea what to do.
Right.
They're like, we want to do something new and innovative that is also the same, that still hits on all of these tropes, that is exactly a game that feels like Zelda and has all the Zelda characters, but also feels altogether new and different.
Right.
That's what Skyward Sword feels like to me. It's them pulling in both directions at the same time.
And I really did lose a lot of faith in the future of the series at that point.
And it was clear that design-wise, they didn't know where to go.
Right.
And that's why I wasn't excited for Breath of the Wild. Yeah. It's because...
the reason why I became excited for Breath of the Wild was Link Between Worlds.
Right.
That was what gave me hope.
Link Between Worlds was the first Zelda game that I sat down and really hammered through, played the entire thing, and enjoyed the shit out of it since Link to the Past, Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Maybe Oracle of Ages.
It's the first one that didn't feel like a chore at any point since at least Link to the Past or Link's Awakening.
And it's also one of it's the first time in many years that I wasn't saying, oh, it's good for a Zelda game.
Right.
I was just saying it's a good game.
Yeah.
Because for a long time now, it's been, oh, Skyward Sword's pretty good for a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Better than Wind Waker. Well, when you only rank it against other Zelda games.
Well, I would say that it was still a good game. I would actually say that it was weak for a Zelda game.
Really?
Yeah, Skyward Sword. I'd say it was really weak for a Zelda game, just a quality game.
I'd say it is weak. It is a weak way to spend your time. I really did not like Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
But so far, what Zelda is, the essence of Zelda is and this is just judging by the way they're designing these games, it appears that to Nintendo, they believe the essence of Zelda is Link, a guy named Link in a green suit, a bunch of items, a ton of collectibles, and some kind of weird animal thing
and there's
going
a princess.
on. And there's a princess.
Yeah.
And they think that just throwing these tropes into some kind of adventure game is enough, and it's not. Because what they don't realize is, and it's the thing that Zelda fans always go on and on about to the point that drives me insane, and I don't even like talking about it. They're like, when is it going to be like the first Zelda? When is it going to capture that sense of adventure?
Right.
And it's such a beaten horse that other than Zelda fans, nobody even talks about it. They're like, it's never going to be like the first game.
Right.
It's never going to be that good. Nostalgia's a bitch. It's not going to happen. And then Breath of the Wild comes out.
It's, and there was a point playing Breath where I got a little discouraged.
I remember that point.
After reaching the second village, I started to feel like maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's too open world. Maybe it's too aimless. And then I found some shit to do, and I'm right back in it again.
It sucked you back in.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about open world game design. So then, and I want to talk about it in parallel with Zelda. So
before we get to that, I want to commend them on breaking a lot of the Zelda tropes.
Almost all of the Zelda tropes. It's a guy named Link and there's Zelda and Ganon. Other than that,
he's not even wearing a green suit.
I think there's a sword somewhere. They seem to imply that, but we don't really know.
Also, I got my first boomerang in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I got a boomerang, finally. What menu is that in?
And then you broke it?
Well, first I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how do I equip this? And I realize it's in the weapon menu with my swords and clubs and spears. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I swing it and it swings like a sword. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Oh, wait, there's a throw weapon button.
Right.
So I throw it and it flings out and it hits a wall and it drops. And I'm like, shit. So I got to go run and grab it. I'm like, I need a bigger area to use my boomerang. Yeah. Then I throw it and it arcs around and it comes back at me. And then I don't grab it in time and it falls to the ground behind me. And I'm like, I have to learn how to use a boomerang in a Zelda game.
Well, it's the... they got rid of unique items. They got rid of collectathons. They got rid of the green suit. They got rid of the companion character. They got rid of Epona. They got rid of so much that it's so pared down, and it still feels like Zelda because it does indeed capture that sense of wonder and exploration and adventure that the first few games did. They didn't capture it because he was wearing a green hat.
Right.
That's not why everyone loved the games.
Yeah, we didn't love Zelda 1 because he looked like a retarded elf. That was not the selling point.
We didn't love it because you collected triangles. It's because of how the game made us feel.
Yeah. I really like triangles though, man.
And it is finally, and
I just realized I'm like 24 hours in. No one's mentioned a Triforce
at all.
Yeah.
No, I've not even.
Maybe it'll be a thing.
I've not even seen a triangle in the whole game. So it's they seem to realize that you can make a Zelda game without having collectathons, and you can still keep the Zelda trope of goofy characters without making them feel overbearing or unnecessary.
Yeah, and I'm still encountering moblins.
Yeah,
but that doesn't. They actually feel like unique enemies versus the other enemies I've encountered. Right. It's not just another little troll thing coming at me.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about open world game design and why the current state of open world game design made me not interested or excited for Breath of the Wild. Because Nintendo comes out and they go, it's an open world game. Oh, it's in immediately comparisons start flying. Oh, like Skyrim. Oh, it's Zelda Skyrim, so on and so forth. Those open world games like that, I don't really enjoy.
Yeah, me either.
The worlds always feel barren. The characters feel stiff. The stories feel boring. Yes, I can go anywhere and do anything, but there's nothing to fucking do.
Yeah, there's no motivation to do any of those things.
Right. Yeah. And there's little reward other than just collecting big giant piles of stuff that you don't ever do anything with or use. And so whenever they said that, I was like, well, this is just going to be, and I wrote in my impressions that are on the site right now, I was like, this is going to be your bog standard open world action RPG with a Zelda theme.
Right.
I'm done. I'm out. Forget it. I don't want it. Just I don't care. I'm so sick of open world games. Oh, it's open world. Whenever they just basically use the open world as a level select screen.
Right.
So I that's why I wasn't excited about it.
Well, this is actually the second open world game within the last 6 months that I really got into.
Mm-hmm.
And both were developed in Japan.
There you go, Japan.
So I think that Japan is figuring out open world, and I'm excited to see that because open world gaming, as it is very much a Western idea.
Absolutely.
And we've in recent months seen Final Fantasy 15 and Breath of the Wild now, which are both sequels to long-running Japanese franchises that are both trying to adopt Western ideas.
Right.
And I'm really excited by how we're seeing this blend of Eastern and Western development.
Absolutely.
And I think we're getting much better games out of it than what we previously got. I am hopeful that it will lead to a resurgence in Japanese game development because they've been in a rut for a little while now.
I'm hopeful that this is the reason that Japanese game development has been so slow to adopt open world games is because they play them and see the same thing I do where it's like, yeah, I can do whatever I want, but I don't want to do any of those things. It's not fun.
Another Japanese-developed open-world game would be MGS5, which you seem to really get into.
Oh my God, I loved MGS5. Yeah. Phenomenal game.
So I feel like they didn't want to just do an open world. They wanted... I'm speaking as if Japan collaborated on this. All of Japan was like, no.
Yeah, hold on, America.
But it seems that the Japanese developers who are jumping into this now wanted to wait until they could make an open world that feels like they're utilizing it.
Yeah.
Like there's things to do and things to see.
Exactly.
It's not just an open world to be an open world.
And that's where Breath of the Wild comes in on a really high note is that there's stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And one thing that they did that I think was smart is that you're playing in the ruins of Hyrule.
Yeah.
So the parts of the game that feel barren and empty, you throw some broken pillars and shit, and it feels like it's supposed to be barren and empty.
Yeah, there's plenty of empty space.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I feel like that's utilized properly.
Exactly.
It creates an ambiance. It makes it to where when you do encounter things, it's more exciting.
Right.
Because you'll go, what feels like half a kilometer or so, just roaming through some ruins or some grass or some trees.
But because it doesn't just feel like the designers didn't put something there. And that's the thing, because a lot of these, it's like, oh, you're wandering your open world game. Here's just an empty forest. And you're like, why is there nothing?
Here's a half mile of road for Ignis to drive down.
Yeah. And you're like, why? There's no point in this being here. Yeah, it's open world, but this is wasted world.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, there's things you can do in that open world because enemies can show up there out of nowhere. And then when you do encounter someone, you feel the need to talk to them because you've been so alone.
Absolutely.
And then every time it's one of those fuckers.
The Yiga clan.
Yes, they're assholes, and I fall for it every time.
I just today did the Yiga portion of the story.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that.
It was
so
I really
looking
enjoyed
forward
that one.
to that.
It's a fun one. But and that's what changed my mind on the game. As I was playing it, I was like, I see stuff in almost every enemy encampment, after you clear it, there's a chest that opens.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's not just a thing like, why do I want to go fight those guys? They might have good gear. I don't know. But oh, look, a mystery box. Yeah. The boat's a boat, but the mystery box can be anything.
And then you open it up and it's like, here's a shitty shield.
And you're like, fuck yeah, a shitty shield. You know, it's great because
even if it's not good, it still feels rewarding.
Right. Everything you do in the world is either rewarding or eventful or both.
Yes.
And that's where they really nail it. And that's where they really...
Like, I was just roaming through a field today, and I saw a little river, and I was like, I'm going to cross that river. And on the other side of the river is going to be a thing. Because it looked like... Because I was walking around at night, and it looked like there was a falling star or something. And then there was a glowing pillar coming up from where it landed. And I was like, I got to see that. But I didn't make it there before daybreak, and then I couldn't see it anymore. But while I was walking over there, I come across this little river. And I'm like, I'm going to cross this river.
Right.
And I cross the river, and there's a rock. And I'm like, I'm just going to crawl over this rock and go by. And it comes to fucking life and tries to attack me, and it's a mini boss. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I noped the fuck out of there.
Right.
But just... roaming around, I encountered a mini boss in the middle of nothing.
And they call them world events.
Yeah.
And other games have been doing this better, which they're contextual world events. They're things that happen within the world that are semi-random.
Right.
And I've seen it in games where it feels dumb.
Yeah.
You're walking and all of a sudden
it feels shoehorned in.
Yeah, like Red Dead Redemption's a good example. You're riding along in your horse, all of a sudden they're like, oh, that guy stole my carriage. Go catch him. It's an example. I don't remember the actual mini games. It's been years, or mini events. So you go chase him down, and then, all right, and you keep going down the road. Oh, he stole my carriage. Go catch him. You're like, I just did this mini event a minute ago, so I'm good.
You know what? Someone else can help you.
You know, they're semi-random, so you run into the same one multiple times. But this one, even the semi-random world events and enemy encampments and stuff are placed just so that each one still feels unique. I've run into one time that felt copy and pasted from one earlier that was the same setup with the same setup number of enemies and the same types.
Yeah.
And only one time have I run into that copy and pasted. And I've
run into a couple of Bokoblin camps that felt samey, but the combat is fun enough that I didn't care.
Right.
Now, there was one thing, and I couldn't tell if it was my memory was bad or if something actually changed. But there was an area where I found a little pond, and I swore there were fairies there because I marked it on my map.
Right.
And I was like, I need to remember to come back here for when I need more fairies. And when I went back there were not fairies. There was a Hinox and a Lionel. And I got my ass kicked.
Yeah. I have, luckily, thus far, not awoken a Hinox, so I have not fought one.
I awoke one, and that was a mistake, and you don't want to do that. I watched a video online of somebody actually taking one down, and I realized I do not have the dexterity to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to come back with better equipment and more hearts.
But I think that's where the game succeeds for me, is that every single inch of it is worth exploring. It's not just random forest. I mean, it feels like every plant and everything was explicitly put. And granted, they had a 6-year development cycle. Yeah, they had time to take this genuinely gigantic world and meticulously place every single little broken pillar and this and that and person, NPC, and everything. And maybe that's the secret formula. Maybe just having the time to do that is why this game feels so polished and well developed and well put together. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever felt a game that made my character feel so small.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that is because other than fast travel to specific points, you can't get around really well. Yeah. A lot of the game is just you trying to...
shitty horses.
They're the shitty garbage horses. You get more than 10 feet away and it's like, I don't know who you are anymore. Bye.
Oh, mine's been pretty good about...
Mine's not.
I've got these 2 horses... And they're both doing pretty well now. I'm at 100% affection or whatever with both of them.
Well, but then when you fast travel, you lose them.
Yeah, you gotta take them with you.
You gotta go get. That's dumb.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
So a lot of the game is just getting around trying to climb these mountains, and climbing a mountain is hard.
Yes, especially when it fucking starts raining or lightning storms really piss me off.
You gotta take your metal off, bro.
Is that it?
You gotta take your metal items off.
I tried to get completely naked and hide by a tree, and it's still hitting me.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe you just have like a metal plate in your head.
Maybe.
you got a Vietnam vet link.
My link was replaced with Lonk.
And as everyone knows, Lonk has a metal plate.
Right.
I do, because we're coming up on the end of the show, but I do want to talk about resource management.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I feel that initially I was upset at how little stamina I had and how fast things broke. But what it has done is it has encouraged me to go from hoarding my items to using my items.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't want to say that I enjoy the system, because it's still a pain.
It is.
But I appreciate what it's doing. It makes me use all of my stuff. I habitually run out of shields, swords, bows, arrows, food, stamina.
When I did the moderate test of strength, I went in there full inventory.
Yeah.
I left with no food, only the weapon that it dropped. No, that and an axe that was flashing red.
Yeah.
No shields. Like all that died in there.
Yeah. And it's interesting that I happen to be getting back into AD&D, which this is again throwback to the beginning of the show.
Right.
But what I love about AD&D is it's very much a resource management game. You look at an encounter and you go, yes, I can complete this, but is it worth the resources I will deplete?
Right.
And you're constantly making that assessment in Breath of the Wild. You're looking at a Bokoblin encampment going, I see a couple knight broadswords, but I'm going to expend too much taking out this encampment. Or you can play with a very sophisticated physics engine in the game to find some way to weasel around having to actually fight anything.
Yeah, the few times I've accidentally stumbled into that, I feel really proud of myself.
Right.
But I never think about it. I'm just like, I'm going to swing my sword and run in there. That's my first instinct. I never look around.
Yeah. I'm guilty of the same thing where I'm like, oh, he's got a sword I want. I'm going to run in there. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I do also want to commend the game, and this is something that we haven't seen in Zelda in years. This is probably the first thing they got rid of in Zelda games whenever they started evolving, and it's something I've seen other critics praise the game for, is its simplicity. At its core, it is a very simple game.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've taken a very simple story and a very simple game. Here's Ganon, go kill him. You don't remember some stuff, and there is these bad guys and these good guys, and you got to go find the good guys and kill the bad guy. It's a very simple story.
Yeah. And
it really is a very simple game. It almost feels Minecrafty,
right?
And how simple here's physics, just like in the real world. It's your simple physics engine, but the simplicity of it allows you to have these interactions that you don't expect,
right?
And that you don't see coming.
Yeah. And there's been more than one occasion where, especially early on, where I found myself thinking, there's no way it's going to let me get away with this. And then I try it, and it lets me get away with it.
And it works. And that's the good thing about it, is that the physics engine is reliable and it's easy to parse. No, it's not like realistic or whatever, but it's very predictable.
There's a shrine where you're supposed to, there's these two like pistons that just launch forward when you hit a switch, and you're supposed to drop balls in them and then launch these balls into specific targets while other things are moving in front of the targets. And the one of them was really easy to time, and I got it. And the other one has these little platelets that go in front of it. I realized after I completed it, you can time stop the platelets to make it a very easy puzzle. But I'd already launched all the balls, and they're floating in water right in front of it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, shit, I don't want to like have to go out there and like push them while swimming to get back to them.
Yeah.
And then I realized I could use my freezy ability,
push them back out,
to just tip them into the target from the water where they already were, and just completely broke that puzzle.
And again, that's something that the designers may or may not have thought of, but it doesn't matter because the physics engine is reliable and predictable enough that you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and when you accidentally do something like that, that may or may not be the intended solution, even if it wasn't the intended solution, you feel good for finding it.
Absolutely.
Because you feel like you cheated somehow.
I love the ones where you feel like you cheated, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, they meant for me to do it this way.
That was the obvious solution.
They tricked you, you know?
Yeah, they tricked you into thinking that you were smarter than you are.
But I do want to, and I know we never do this on this show, but I do want to commend Nintendo.
What?
I know. They cut out collectathons. They cut out all the tropes. They cut out persistent items. They cut out traditional dungeons, like so much of what makes Zelda Zelda. If I just took a list of everything they cut out of this and I went back in time 6 years and I showed it to us, I'd be like,
none of these things will be in the next Zelda game. We would call you a liar.
Yeah, we'd be like, then it's not a fucking Zelda game. It's Federation Force Mark II. It's bullshit. But
don't you bring those words up here.
But again, it feels more like Zelda than most other Zelda games.
I would say that it feels more like Zelda than anything since at least in 64.
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Anyway, in case it wasn't clear, I love Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 6.5.
I'm going to bump mine up to a 7.
Oh, shit.
This is so far for me I have my niggling issues, but I don't consider any of my issues to be problems with the game.
Right.
I consider them things that I personally would have preferred one way or the other, subjectively.
So you'd say this is definitely a reason to hang on to your Wii U and not buy the Switch yet.
If I mean, it's on the Wii U. If you can find a copy, good luck.
Dude, I went by the Walmart last night. They had like 17 for Wii U and none. Oh, no, they had like 2 or 3 left for Switch.
That's going to be worth some money in like 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got my copy already.
But and we could just spend an hour and a half reviewing the game, talking about the game and how much it makes the Switch worth having. Because yes, you can play it on the Wii U, but it runs better on the Switch. And I think Zelda games, for me personally, have always benefited from being portable experiences, and it now is one.
Yeah, see, that part doesn't sell me.
Yeah, for me, that's huge. That's why I played through Ocarina 3D.
I've been told that the Wii U version has no benefit on the gamepad. There feels like there should be so much benefit. The Sheikah Stone right there in your hand.
Well, I was reading an interview with some of the designers, and apparently what happened was they basically retooled. They had it that way, so that because the game very much feels like, your gamepad is your Sheikah Slate, and it was designed that way. It's clearly it was whenever you think about it.
It even looks like a Wii U gamepad at times,
right? But they were like, once we realized it was coming to Switch, we had to retool all of that.
Right.
So instead of having 2 versions, they just cut it out and made them both the same.
I had read one interview where they said that they had it that way on the Wii U to where you could see your map all the time. And they realized people were just staring down at the map and not looking at the game. And it was detracting from the actual gameplay because they were constantly trying to micromanage all the stats and everything on there.
For sure.
And that it was hurting the experience. So I get why they might have wanted to do that. I think the more realistic reason is probably to just make it more like the Switch version.
Right.
But it's still a little disappointing that it doesn't utilize the last big game on the Wii U doesn't utilize the Wii U.
My favorite interview I read was a designer talking about him presenting the game to Miyamoto. Yeah. Because Miyamoto, again, he doesn't make the games directly anymore. He's just kind of oversees. He okays things. He's like, that's a thumbs up, you know. And I can't remember who originally reported it. I read it on US Gamer, but it was re-reported, I think, from Kotaku, as much as I hate saying those words. Right. But I think it was. So they showed it to Miyamoto, and they're like, okay, here's your Zelda game, and he's playing with it, and he's in the Great Plateau, and he's running around, and they're like, okay, and it's got physics and this, and they're trying to catch him up, and he just keeps climbing trees. and the dude was talking, and he was like, well, he just kept climbing trees over and over, just little trees. Yeah. Like he'd climb one, then he'd run to the next one and climb it, run to the next one and climb it. And then he would at this point he goes, Miyamoto, there's all these other things. Do you want to go do these other things? And he was like, no. and they were like, so we were just gonna let him get his tree climbing out. He climbed trees for an hour. He just sat there and just climbed tree after tree after tree. And that's what I appreciate about the man.
Right.
He so enjoys minutia.
Yeah.
Now, granted, this is I would say a problem that Nintendo as a whole has had is missing the big picture.
Right.
But they always get the minutia right.
Yes.
Luckily, this is a game where both big picture and minutia both came together perfectly.
And every interview he'd ever given about the original Zelda, he always talks about going into the forest as a kid and finding little caverns and such in the forest. Because I'm sure there are actually moblins with rupees in forests in
Clearly.
Japan. I think that's a real thing.
He just beat the crap out of some little kids and took their money. Miyamoto was a bully.
Yeah. But he always gives that same depiction of his childhood every time that somebody asks him about the first Zelda. This is the first game in the series where I've felt that.
Absolutely.
Where it really does feel like adventure, like exploration, like just roaming.
Yeah, there are moments where it's a very emotional game for me. And at its best, it encapsulates what I love about older Zelda games. It encapsulates what I love about Dark Souls, what I love about Shadow of the Colossus. It's all of these snippets of all these other little games put together in this one complete package. And it's just done so fantastically well. If you can get your hands on a Switch, you owe it to yourself to play this game.
And if not, if you have a Wii U, get it anyway.
Yeah, it still plays fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
And, you know, I think...
Release it.
I think part of the reason why Zelda isn't going to sell as well on Wii U, the Switch came out.
And no one has a Wii U.
Yeah, well, there's that. But I think it's because it leaked to the internet like 3 weeks ago.
Really?
It's super easy to pirate Breath of the Wild on the Wii U.
Wow.
So if you hacked your Wii U...
And Wii U emulation has got it up and running already.
Yeah.
I saw it on Reddit.
I don't endorse it, but man, it's easy to do.
And God, is it a good game.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully this was a retro enough viewing of Breath of the Wild, I guess is what this basically was.
In retrospect, and I'm not through the game, obviously, I'm maybe a quarter of the way through the game. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But looking back at my time, already close to 24 hours on the game, there's so many just Zelda things that I haven't experienced, that I don't know if they're going to show up. I don't know if there's going to be Gamas or Dodongos or
And that uncertainty is very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows if any of that shit's actually going to happen. And if it doesn't, it still feels like Zelda and it still feels like a great game.
As far as how much I'm enjoying the game, I'm not a Zelda fan and I don't really like open world RPGs. And I don't like DLC and I don't play games on hard mode. I am ecstatic about this game and cannot wait to give them money for the DLC to replay it on hard mode. That's how much I'm enjoying this.
The last games that I did replay on hard mode after finishing were Final Fantasy 15, Link Between Worlds, and Skyward Sword. That's the last 3 games that I replayed on hard mode.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to this one now.
Anyway,
I don't know if I'll be able to do it because this game is hard as nails.
Let's move on to our question of the week because we're coming up on the end of the show. We have Dougie McG, who is at our participant tier on our Patreon campaign. So we answer his question live on the show each week. And I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to read it as it was written because I don't have my notes. I'm not holding anything.
We're going to have to summarize it.
It's ad-libbing here. Yeah. But he wants to know what your favorite game ending was.
Favorite or most memorable, I believe.
Right. And it can be just for sense of accomplishment or whatever your reasoning is.
For me, that answer is easy. It was Super Mario Brothers 3.
Okay.
It was in 1990. And we finished it, and man, World 8 that first time was brutal. But we got there and we finished it, and there's the fake out ending where Princess Toadstool, as we knew her at the time, walks up to you and says, "I'm sorry, our princess is in another castle."
What?
And then she laughs and says, "Just kidding," and that's the end of the game.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And I was young then. I was in 2nd grade, I believe, in 1990. And the way that school worked at the time, our school was...
You're so old that school worked differently back then.
Shut up. Our school was big enough that we had to merge classes for some classes. So for gym class, we had to merge...
It'd be math gym.
Yeah, it was math gym. No, we had to merge the 2nd and 5th graders together.
Yeah.
So anytime that it was dodgeball, you really wanted to be on the team with more 5th graders.
Right.
You did not want to be just
Seems like a bad game to play with that combination of people.
It was. But so I remember we had just, the regular run laps around the gym thing that you always do.
Right.
And I was running my lap like you do, and I hear 2 of the 5th graders talking about Mario 3. And one of them is telling the other one about the ending. And telling about the fake out and Princess Toadstool saying your princess is in another castle. And the other 5th grader says, that's not real. And I was able to chime in with, yeah, it is. I beat it last night. And these 2 5th graders look at me like, why are you talking to us?
Then they beat the shit out of you.
No, I didn't get that far.
Then Saturn was in traction for a year.
But I just remember that look of, why are you talking to us? And I was like, I should not talk to people. And then later on in that same gym class, the one that was telling them about it comes up to me and is like, hey, thanks for backing me up, kid. And I was like, oh, a 5th grader talked to me.
And then he beat the shit out of you.
Then he beat the shit out of me and took my lunch money. No, but no, that was very memorable for me just because there was an event attached to it.
Right. I thought about it a lot, and it's hard because I don't have a great answer because I don't finish a lot of games. Basically, I don't finish any games ever.
I push myself to finish as many games as I can.
I finish almost none intentionally. I don't like finishing them. It makes me sad. Probably one of the most memorable for me would most likely be Mega Man X on Super Nintendo. It was we got the Super Nintendo for Christmas, and we got Mega Man X, and
such a good game.
Played so much of that, and I didn't beat the game because I'm only a human.
You're mortal.
But my clearly robotic brother beat the game, and just being there for that and seeing the last boss, it was just a lot of fun, and it was sitting there watching him play games all the time when I was a kid because he could beat them. You know, that's how I saw most ending screens, but that one specifically stuck out for me because it was the first time I remember like being old enough to actually recognize how good of a game it was. Like this game is designed well, the music is good, the bosses are awesome. Like in seeing that game played through was probably the first time I remember really feeling like I was noticing the merits of a game. Because I mean, when you're a kid, you play anything, you don't care. You're like, whatever.
You'll play Wall Street Kid.
Yeah, and then you play a game, and you're like, this is way better than McKids. You know.
Can I add an addendum to mine?
Yeah,
a bonus answer. Another very memorable ending, also because the story attached to it. Was around that same time. So I was in like 1st or 2nd grade. Was when my mom beat Dragon Quest 1. Because I haven't mentioned Dragon Quest yet this episode, and that's important. When my mom beat Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Warrior 1, as we knew it at the time, it was like 2 in the morning on a school night, and she came and woke me and my brother and my sister up so that we could see it. And my brother and my sister just like immediately roll over and like, who cares? And go back to bed. And I go sprinting into the living room and I'm like, you got to the Dragon Lord? And she was like, yeah. And I just watch her, and then it transforms from, you know, little wizard Dragon Lord into big Dragon Lord.
Yeah.
And I'm just enthralled by these shitty 8-bit graphics.
Right.
And the music, and then her, you know, carrying the ball of light back to fucking Tantagal and everything. Just the whole ending to that game was just so amazing to me as like an 8 or 9 year old. At 2
o'clock in the morning,
yeah, at 2:30 in the morning. Like, no, I sprinted awake. Like, I was wide awake by that point.
Yeah,
because my mom is super stoked and excited, and I'm excited, and the rest of my family was like, "Fuck you, it's a video game." We went back to bed.
It's not like she beat Milon's Secret Castle.
But yeah, that was also an exciting moment. Like, absolutely. I was exhausted at school the next day, but I saw the end of Dragon Warrior.
Anyway, that's all we have for this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about nothing but the Switch Pro controller for an entire hour.
Oh, man, I love that controller. It's so good.
Would that we could. I can't even think of a way to retro.
No.
I can't. There's got to be some way.
When we have Controllers episode 2.
There we go. I'm gonna cram modern Switch talk into this show somehow, one way or the other. I think next week we will have spent both several days with Blaster Master Zero at that point, hopefully. So maybe we can.
And I've played some more Setsuna. That came out last year. It's like retro.
It's kind of retro-ish. If you would like to support us on Patreon, we would be very grateful. You can do so at patreon.com/retrowarriors. You can also read our writing at retrowarriors.net because we have hit our 2nd milestone, which includes written content. Right now, you can read my Breath of the Wild impressions, which you basically got a larger version of here, but that was also interesting because it was right outside of Great Plateau, so it's how I felt about the game specifically after finishing the tutorial, which I was honestly dreading and ended up thoroughly enjoying.
Welcome back to the Zelda fandom, man.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back. Really, I guess I've been back since Link Between Worlds, but I felt like
Link Between Worlds is so good.
At the time, I felt like that was a one-off. I was like, they got one right, and then this happens. And,
that was my thought as well. I really hoped it wasn't going to be a one-off, and it wasn't.
Now my brain has just exploded out of the back of my skull.
Now we have a pile of amiibo on your table.
Now I'm buying Zelda amiibo. This is my life.
Yep.
Anyway, as always, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week, maybe with Blaster Master Zero, which is what I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's good. It's going to be good. It is going to be good. It's going to be a good game. They can't mess up Blaster Master.
I cannot wait for Dragon's Trap.
Oh, yeah. That's
going to be so good.
It's, what do you got? A month?
Less than 2 months.
Anyway,
excited.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.